All right, let's just get right into it. What if everything, and I mean everything, you've been taught about competition is just wrong? What if the real goal isn't to be the best in a crowded field, but to be the only one? That's the big idea we're diving into today. We're breaking down the core and, yeah, kind of controversial ideas from Peter Thiel's legendary book, Zero to One. This is the book that really did rewrite the rules for building the future. So, Peter Thiel has this one question he famously asks to spot original thinkers. It's not some kind of brain teaser or riddle, it's more like a test of your entire worldview. He actually argues that the answer to this question is the seed for every great new company. So, I'm going to ask you the same thing. What important truth do very few people agree with you on? Go ahead, think about it for a second. It is way harder than it sounds, right? So, why is that question so tough? Well, it's because it's not just about being smart, it's about something else entirely. As Thiel himself puts it, brilliant thinking is rare, but courage is in even shorter supply than genius. And that just nails it, doesn't it? It's one thing to have this secret, contrarian idea in your head, but it's a whole other thing to have the courage to actually say it out loud. And that courage, that's the real starting line for creating anything new. Okay, so this whole idea of finding unpopular truths, that's really the foundation for the entire book's main concept, going from zero to one. See, Thiel argues that progress really only happens in one of two ways. So, on one hand, you've got progress that goes from 1 to n. Think of this as copying stuff that already works. You take one successful blueprint, say a smartphone, and you just make millions more of them, maybe a little cheaper or in a different color. That's globalization. But then you have progress that goes from 0 to 1. And that is pure creation. That's not making another smartphone. It's inventing the very first one. It's that moment of magic where you create something out of absolutely nothing. And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures the whole idea. The next Bill Gates isn't going to build an operating system, and the next Mark Zuckerberg won't create a social network. Copying them isn't learning from them. The real lesson from these giants isn't what they built, but that they built something completely new. True innovation isn't about walking in their footsteps. It's about blazing your own trail to create something the world didn't even know it needed yet. All right, this next part, this is where things get really controversial. This is the claim that pretty much challenges the foundation of everything we're taught about business and capitalism. Get ready for it. Competition is for losers. I mean, think about it. We're all raised on this idea that competition is good. It's healthy, it drives us to be better. But Thiel says, no, that's just an ideology. And it's one that completely poisons our thinking. In the world of business, it's a total trap. You get these companies that are so obsessed with beating their rivals that they end up looking and acting exactly like them. They're all just fighting over these tiny little scraps of the same pie, instead of going out and baking a completely new one. And look, you don't have to take his word for it. Just look at this comparison right here. It's kind of wild. Back in 2012, the entire U.S. airline industry moved millions of people, creating hundreds of billions of dollars in value for society. But because they were all trapped in this brutal, cutthroat competition, you know how much profit they made per passenger? 37 cents. It's insane. Meanwhile, you've got Google, which basically had a monopoly on search. They also created massive value, but they were able to capture so much more of it. One is a daily, bloody struggle for survival. The other is a platform for building the future. So when Thiel talks about monopoly profits, he's not just talking about corporate greed, yachts and huge bonuses. He argues that those profits are actually the fuel for real innovation. It's that financial freedom, that cushion, that lets a company think beyond just making it to the next quarter. It allows them to fund ambitious, risky R&D, to pay their people really well, and to actually make plans for a future 10 or 20 years down the road, instead of just worrying about making payroll next month. And let's be super clear here. Thiel isn't defending the old-school cartoon villain monopolist who buys up all the railroads and jacks up prices. He's talking about what he calls a creative monopoly. The perfect example is Google with search. They didn't steal the search market from anybody. They literally created it. They were just so much better than anything else that they became the market. And in doing so, they added this whole new category of abundance to the world and actually gave all of us more choice, not less. Okay, so if the goal is to build one of these creative monopolies, the big question is, how do you actually do it? Well, Thiel lays out a pretty specific playbook, and it all starts with 4 key characteristics. So according to Thiel, all the really durable monopolies have these 4 things in common. First up, they have proprietary technology that isn't just a little bit better, it's like 10 times better, a total game changer. Second, they have network effects.
this is where the product itself gets more valuable the more people use it. Think about a social network. It's useless if you're the only one on it. Third, economies of scale. Basically, the bigger they get, the stronger and more efficient they become, which makes it really hard for anyone new to compete. And finally, a killer brand. A brand so strong that it becomes the first thing you think of for that entire category.
But it's not just about those 4 traits. Thiel also gives founders this list of 7 questions that you absolutely must be able to answer. And they really force you to think about everything. Like, is your tech a genuine breakthrough? Is now the right moment in history for this? Can you start by completely dominating a small, specific market? Do you have the right people on your team? Do you actually have a plan to get your product to customers? And this is a big one. Will your business still be around and defensible in 10 or 20 years? But really, the most important question of all is that last one. Have you found a unique secret, an opportunity that other people just don't see?
And this idea also just torches a classic startup mantra we hear all the time, first mover advantage. Thiel basically says, forget that, it's a total distraction. Being first means absolutely nothing if someone else comes along right behind you and does it bigger, better, and builds a business that actually lasts. The real goal isn't to be the first mover, it's to be the last mover, to be the company that makes the final greatest development in a market and then gets to enjoy the monopoly profits for decades to come. Think Facebook, not MySpace.
So, what kind of person actually does all this? Who can pull this off? Well, that brings us to what Thiel calls the founder's paradox. Thiel often points to this quote from Emerson to explain the mindset. It's this idea that strong men believe in cause and effect. It's not about getting lucky or being in the right place at the right time. It's about a deep belief that you are the cause and the massive, successful company is the effect. Founders don't think the future is something that just happens to them. They believe it's something they can design and build with a concrete plan. Thiel has a great term for this: definite optimism.
And this all leads to what he calls the founder's paradox. See, the very traits that make a founder incredibly successful, that obsessive focus, that singular vision, the ability to just ignore what everyone else thinks, are often the exact same traits that can make them seem, well, strange or even difficult to the rest of the world. Just think about someone like Steve Jobs, right? Their genius and their, let's say, sharp edges are often just 2 sides of the very same coin.
And all of this brings us right back to the ultimate question, doesn't it? The core challenge of 0 to 1 isn't just about business strategy. It's a challenge to every one of us to see the world differently, to go looking for those secrets that are hiding in plain sight. So the question for you is, what valuable company is nobody building? Because the answer to that question, well, that's where the future begins.